I honestly thought 2% inflation sounded pretty okay at first. The problem is that we need to keep printing money to pay the debt and to keep the whole system going. When you hear the truth, I believe you know it. The natural state of the free market is deflation, and we've been told the opposite for so long. Once I learned about Bitcoin, I started getting some hope for the world.
Welcome to the Bitcoin RX podcast. This is your host, Nurse Ralph. Today, I got with me Paula from the Bitcoin Edge. We're going to talk about Bitcoin and give you your weekly dose of orange pill so you don't die from fiat disease. Paula, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today. Always good to talk about Bitcoin.
Exactly. I love it. I just want to start by saying that you are the reason why I started a podcast. So I appreciate you for being, an inspiration for me. So thank you very much.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm glad I inspire people
Oh,
because
yeah.
I know people realize if I can start this knowing very little about technology,
Yep.
but just having the desire to bring the message about Bitcoin to people,
Yep.
the right people will
Oh,
come
yeah.
come to Bitcoin and also come and listen to us.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, and I agree. I'm not that technical into Bitcoin either. I'm just, I just feel like, it resonate with me, and it's something that I think everybody should have. And I think that's why I started it too. I was like, you know what? At first I thought maybe, there are many Bitcoin podcasts out there. Why should I start one? And then I was thinking after that, I was like, maybe someone might wanna like hear it from my point of view. Maybe, so I think, yeah, because at first it's very intimidating, but over
It
time you
is,
get used to it. Yeah.
but you
Oh yeah.
never know who will resonate with you. And
Yeah.
I love your outfit.
Oh,
Perfect.
thank you. Thank you. Oh yeah, same here. Oh yeah. Looking like you're like ready for a professional meeting. Okay. Before we start talking about Bitcoin, though, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey before Bitcoin.
Well, my journey with Bitcoin began when I was living in Zimbabwe, which is where I'm from. And I was living there helping my mom take care of my dad, who had Alzheimer's. And I had moved back from the States. I wasn't completely happy in my job here, and I was kind of searching for something more. And when I got back there, I started thinking about, well, how am I going to take care of myself financially? So I went to this talk on Bitcoin. It was a multi-level marketing talk. So it wasn't Bitcoin self custody as we like to do it, but it got me interested in the subject, and the inflation piece made sense, and all the information was good. And unfortunately, I lost, like many Bitcoiners, in getting involved in that because there was no way to get my money back. But it gave me the first touch point for Bitcoin. And then when I moved back to the US in 2020, like many people, I had time and I thought about Bitcoin again and started going down the rabbit hole and learning more about how money works. And again, it was that thought of how am I going to take care of myself in retirement because I hadn't saved enough. I didn't. And plus, now that things are getting more expensive, we need more in retirement. If you're living in the US, you now need more than you needed 5, 10 years ago because, as you and I know, because of inflation, cost of living has gone up. And so I was starting to think about it back then, and I found Bitcoin again and started going down the rabbit hole a little more to understand better.
Interesting. What was that multi-marketing thing about? Like, what was it? Was it a specific Bitcoin company, or like what? How come you lost the first time you got into it?
Yeah, I should have seen the red flags when they said it's not eligible in the US. But they're like, "Oh, yeah, Bitcoin's not." But I'm not even sure if that company's still not going. But the multi-level aspect was you put a certain amount into a mining company, and they were mining Bitcoin, and you could get the profits out, but I never saw the profits. So
Oh,
yeah, maybe it
yep.
was a scam.
Yep. Possibly, possibly. Yeah, yeah. Do you remember the name of that company or no?
Can't remember it right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, no, no worries, no worries. Oh, yeah, that's a shame. I mean, I feel like yeah, we all go through those journeys where we unfortunately, we make, the first time is always, especially if we don't have the right guidance, I feel like, yeah, we will make a mistake eventually. So that's understandable. And
As humans, I tend to learn more from my mistakes. So in a way, it was beneficial because I paid a little bit more attention to what I was doing in the future. But yeah, it didn't stop me from going down the altcoin rabbit hole.
right. Oh yeah. What else did you end up buying other than Bitcoin when you first started?
In the beginning, I was following some pretty good traders, and I have to say they did do very well. Some of them have done very well, and I'm I was always under the impression, well, there could be other uses for them. And the more I listen to Jeff Booth, I understand why that's going forward not likely, but it could be in the short term. There, a lot of people are using Solana with to buy meme coins and trade and whatever people do, have fun. And they're definitely using it and it's very widely used. So, yeah, that was something that I looked into. I looked into Ethereum, but that was losing to Solana even. So I got rid of that. And it was a bit of a, yeah, in the beginning for me, it was a little bit of a gambling because I too, like everybody else, just wanted to make money to
Mhm.
get ahead.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think I have a pretty similar journey. I mean, when I first started, I was into like a lot of different cryptos and meme coins and all that, and then eventually I realized that, oh, okay, it all goes right back into Bitcoin. So can you tell us a little bit more about Zimbabwe? Actually, I'm very curious about that. What was life like back then? Like, did you experience the hyperinflation that everybody talks about? Like, what was life like back then?
So Zimbabwe's a great country. I had a wonderful time growing up there. It's I didn't experience the hyperinflation in 2008, and even to this day, it's one of the highest inflation in the world. Zimbabwe, when it went from British rule to independence, it started using the Zimbabwe dollar, and that was going well at first. But then, like many governments around the world, the people at the top get greedy and start printing and doing whatever they do. And that's what causes the hyperinflation there. And I think they're on their seventh or ninth currency. And my family still live there, so I still go back and experience that. But now they use the US dollar. Like El Salvador and like many other countries, they use the US dollar not officially. They don't really like the US, but they use the US dollar. And most people have gravitated towards the US dollar, and some people are starting to use Bitcoin there. Very, very small amount because there's no on ramp to buy Bitcoin. It's peer to peer. But Zimbabwe itself is really a beautiful place, and the people are wonderful. It's peaceful. So that's all good. It's just that the government is more like a dictatorship. So, but people still are able to earn US dollars. So that does help. It's just that most people there are barely surviving. And that when you don't have extra money, it's very hard to think about Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Is there like a good amount of, I'm guessing not, but is there a good amount of like Bitcoin education over there or not really, or not yet, maybe?
Yeah, it's starting. And Anita Posh, who I interviewed today, has started Bitcoin education over there in 2020. And also where I'm from, one of the guys I spoke to Alexandria. He and others are teaching me Premier Bitcoin, my first Bitcoin in the city I'm from, Bulawayo. Oh yes, it's starting. And she was telling me today that they there are several groups now starting up, and where it started out as very few people, now there was 30 people in a group, and
Yep.
yeah, it's
That's
growing
actually amazing. Yeah,
like
yeah. Oh, I like
everywhere.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. For the new, well, the people, the new people watching this podcast, and for my audience as well. Like, can you explain to us like why even just a little 2% inflation is bad for, I guess, the working class, and I mean maybe good for the people that are using the system, but like why is it that even a 2% inflation is not good for us based on what you've learn so far?
Yeah, I honestly thought 2% inflation sounded pretty okay at first.
Yeah, same
And
here.
yeah, but since I've studied the numbers, I've heard that even 2% over 10 years takes away so much of your purchasing power. And I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but saving 100,000 today, and in 10 years' time, that 100,000 might buy you 60,000 worth of goods. Most people wouldn't think that if it's just 2%. But we actually know it's not even just 2%. Even if the government numbers come out as 2%, most of the people I follow say it's much higher than 8, 9, even 14%.
Right, right. That's scary, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it is scary. So, in order to invest in the stock market, you need to make at least 14% on your investments to keep up with inflation. And that's hard to do. So, inflation, as they say, is the silent tax. And, after talking to people like Jeff Booth and hearing it over and over again, the only reason we think inflation is normal is because we've been told that our whole lives. And I certainly believe that. If I ask most of my friends that, that's normal. Yeah, a little bit of inflation's okay. But why is that okay? Well, it's okay in our system because we have a debt-based system that cannot survive with deflation. So they have to keep the inflation at 2%. And right now it's going a little bit higher, or it went higher during COVID because of the money printing. And then they want to bring it back down. But the problem is that we need to keep printing money to pay the debt and to keep the whole system going. And so it's all one big scam, really, in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I know I mean, it's kind of like the easiest way to explain it. Explain it. Yeah, yeah. It's and that's not wrong. Yeah. When did Bitcoin first click for you? Like, was there a moment of time when you were like, huh, like that is starting to make sense a little bit. Like, what was it that was there a specific book or a specific person that actually like made that switch for you?
Yeah, I don't think there was just one moment where it clicked. I definitely came for number go up because, like I said, I was trying to find a way to beat the retirement game. And I, once I realized that I started watching podcasts and people on YouTube, just like we are doing. And I realized there was something here because when you hear the truth, I believe you know it. I didn't understand it fully, but I realized I had to dig deeper. So then I went and read the Bitcoin Standard. And that's probably when the first click came. Like, I had no idea of the history of money. I myself did not study economics, so I barely understood economics even before that. I didn't know that the whole world has been sold Keynesian economics. And that was eye opening to me. Even how money worked, I was clueless about that. I had a basics, but I hadn't really been interested in the history of money, and now I see why it's so important and how every aspect of our lives is touched by money. And then I went on to read Jeff Booth's The Price of Tomorrow, which I'm reading again because it takes a long time to really for that to sink in.
Yep.
And I really like Seb Bunny's book, which is The Hidden Cost of Money. Seb explains money in a way that's really wonderful to read. And I also love Larry Lepard's book of The Big Print. And I might recommend that before the Bitcoin Standard these days. I highly recommend everyone read both, but um, the the Big Print is really easy read and a little bit more fun. And I've given the Bitcoin Standard to two people, and I'm pretty sure they haven't read it. But then they might not read the big print either. I don't know. I think you get Bitcoin when you're ready for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the my first book that I read about Bitcoin was the Bitcoin Standard, and I agree. It's one of those books that's like I don't know. It's not too complicated, but at the same time, it can be a little heavy-ish. So like I remember after I first read it, I was like, there is no way that this is true. Like I literally just like, and so I had to like just fact check everything. I was like, wait, is this true? Like I just went down to like learning about the history of money. I wasn't even interested in like like I think the second half of the book was more about Bitcoin, but like I totally ignored that part. I was just like, I was just focused on like the history of money. Like is it true that like, all of that, and then eventually, yeah, I was like, okay, I give up. There is, yeah, we need a better system. This cannot go on forever. Yeah, but
Did
wow,
you
that's
read did
uh
you
huh.
read The Creature from Jekyll Island?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That book was interesting as well. Yeah, I know. I actually I would like to recommend that book, but it's so much. Like it's just like it's one of those books that I'm like, unless somebody's like extremely like interested into the history of like the Federal Reserve,
Yeah.
maybe I'll suggest it. But I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about that book? Is that something that you?
I'm still reading it. I have a
Okay.
hard
Yep.
time with it. I don't
Yeah.
love history, and
Yep.
I know people love that book, and I do
Yep.
think it's very valuable for
Yep.
Bitcoiners especially, and I am
Yep.
gonna finish it, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not the easiest for me to read.
Yeah. It's not. It took me a while. Like yeah, I think that book took me the longest to finish, to be honest. So yeah, no, you're not alone. That book it's long and but like I love like everything that I learned about it. So yeah, it's just a little much. It definitely would not be my first book, but I would put it in like a to do, a to read book. I'll put it at the bottom of the list just so that people understand um now the Federal Reserve basically. So also talking about the being on a Bitcoin standard actually. I've seen a few of your interviews, and then there are a lot of people. Well, not a lot, maybe one or two people that are like living on a Bitcoin standard. Is that something that you are trying to do as well, living on the Bitcoin standard at some point, or are is that something that you see in the like the near future?
I think it's challenging being in the US, and I'm in Miami, so paying groceries at Whole Foods or Publix or one of the grocery stores is not possible right now. I think apps are coming, like they have an app in Kenya already where you can pay in Bitcoin and the merchant gets it in US dollars or the currency, and the app automatically switches it
Oh
without
wow.
them even knowing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
that's in Kenya. So if it's in Kenya, it can come here. And the reason I do want to be on the Bitcoin standard is because I want to support Bitcoin and the world I want to see. And many people, including Jeff Booth, say that in order for Bitcoin to survive, we must use it as a medium of exchange. And I don't know if that's 100% true, but I know Jeff Booth is much smarter than me. And if he says that, I listen. And I do want to support the network. I so that's why I want to be on the Bitcoin standard. Also because I want to start living in the world that I want to see, because I actually believe very much in the law of attraction, and you can call it whatever you want, but I do believe that what I think about and what I put into motion with my thoughts creates the world I want to see. So why not do that with Bitcoin as well? And in order for me to do that, I've got to take action. So although I do agree that keeping a HODL stack for savings is a wonderful long-term practice, but I can spend in Bitcoin, spend and replace. And that's how I want to continue to help the network.
I want to get there too at some point. I feel like you're right though. It's kind of hard like doing that like in the US because not everybody's gonna accept it, and then also like it's like having an emergency fund as well. It's kind of like, well, I kind of want to keep it in fiat and keep a 3 to 6 months emergency fund just in case. So it feels like until like everybody else around us like starts to do that, it's gonna be hard for just one person to just do it. So, but I don't know. I am hoping that we start doing something like Kenya. Like I didn't know that was a thing. That's actually amazing. Like I'm hoping somebody does that here too. So that's good. And then also the medium of exchange part that Jeff Booth said as well. I was always like, wait, that doesn't make sense because like gold and houses and all of that, they're used as stores of values, but we don't use it as medium of exchange. So I was always like, why is he saying that? And then I don't know if I found an answer necessarily to that statement other than supporting the network. Of course, I feel like if there is no transaction, then the miners won't get paid. But I feel like there will always be a transaction, but I don't know if the amount of transaction need to be like at a point where it has to be like where everybody is using it. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm not smart enough to know that answer yet. So yeah, that's an interesting take for sure. Yeah. Wow.
Well, I think also what he's saying is because gold, yes, gold is a more of a medium of exchange, but what he was saying, if gold was truly in a free market, the price of gold would be 80,000 today, not 3,000, because it's suppressed because of the markets and the option traders, because there's paper gold. So what he's saying is that if we keep it as a store of value and don't use it, then it won't be used that much. And eventually, the governments will co opt it and it'll still go up in value, but it will be controlled. So I think that's what he's saying. He's saying eventually that's what will happen. Governments, by what they're doing today, even having the money in the ETFs and in MicroStrategy, and they'll find a way to get that Bitcoin and take control of it.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, I can't disagree. It's Jeff Booth, man. It's kind of
I
hard
think
to be.
that's my interpretation. I could
Yeah.
be wrong too, but
No.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think whatever his reason is, it's something to pay attention to and just keep learning about it.
Right. 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 Yeah. Yeah. I think now I have one wish. I kind of hope to be in his head one day just to know what this man is thinking because he's I don't know. Yeah, he's
Well, you'll
fascinating.
interview him one day and you'll
Yep.
find out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna have to ask everything that I can because I feel like his brain just he thinks about I don't know, but that's wild. Um, from talking to other people that are not Bitcoiners, what do you think their biggest misconception is about Bitcoin?
I think a lot of people think that it's too late to buy Bitcoin. It's too late. It's too high now. A lot of people say, I don't think that they understand that it could be a money. They just see it as an investment. And well, so it's too late. They're not going to buy it. Um, and I think people in Africa think it's a scam. A lot of people still think that, and not just Africa, but a lot of people think that it's, for criminals, and they don't fully understand it. I know that's less in the US now because now we have the US government behind it, which does help. But yeah, I've stopped trying to orange pill people. The ones who know about it will come and ask me questions when they're ready. but when I say that I am so, what are you focusing on the moment? And I say Bitcoin, I get raised eyebrows, and I don't go into it any further. But for example, I know a trainer who trains Nayib Bukele in Miami.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, and he doesn't own Bitcoin. Um,
Damn.
yeah, and he came to ask me, do what? How should I buy it? And that was hard for me because how do you tell somebody who doesn't really understand Bitcoin? Should they start with an ETF? Should they just go straight to Coinbase or River and take it into cold custody? It's not somebody I know well. So yeah, I've been thinking about. I think the best answer for people is study it, and that's what I told him. Go learn about it. He says, "Yeah, but where can I buy it?" I said, "Well, if you want to start with the ETF, that's a place to start." But yeah,
Interesting. Well, first of all, I think if we could find a way to like tell people the history of money, explain the history of it, of like fiat currencies and all that. If they understood fiat currencies, I think it would be easier for them to understand Bitcoin, to be honest with you, because like you said, they I don't think a lot of people understand anything about money. They don't understand like that inflation is, or they don't understand that inflation, a 2% inflation is bad for them. They don't understand a lot of that. So I think understanding money might help, to orange pill them easier. And then like the other thing about like buying Bitcoin, I almost I'm almost like I almost like try to like not I try to not use the term buy Bitcoin. Instead I try to use the term save in Bitcoin instead. I think like that starts to like, and it does something to you to understand, oh, you saving in Bitcoin. What do you mean saving? Because it gives you I feel like saying saving in Bitcoin gives you a longer time, like I don't know if that makes sense, because if I'm just saying, oh, buy Bitcoin, that means if I buy it, then I can just sell it at some point in the near future. But if I say saving Bitcoin, then you're like, wait, why are you saving this? Why, so I don't know, what do you think about that, saying saving Bitcoin instead?
I think that's a great point. I think we do need to change the way we say things, and saving in Bitcoin is really important. And yeah, I think that's really good. I'm just wondering how you could have a quick conversation about the history of money.
Right. Oh,
It,
yeah, that's
you
that's
you need
tough.
a little bit more time, but I've heard try to meet people where they are. So whether if inflation is affecting them, then you can start there. And everyone seems to know that the U.S. now is in a lot of debt, and yeah, that could get into the history of money and the Federal Reserve. But somebody would have to really be interested to go into that conversation.
Oh yeah, I think they might get bored halfway through the conversation. Oh yeah.
Like I said, I I would give the big print, and the Bitcoin Standard, and yeah, and of course the price of tomorrow to understand where the world is going, and yeah, the natural state of the free market is deflation, and we've been told the opposite for so long. So yeah, I like all of those books. I do watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of different different people, and there's incredible information out there.
What was your inspiration to start your YouTube channel actually?
Yeah, I was tired of my work. It wasn't giving me enough purpose, I felt. I've always been interested in finding my purpose, and I it didn't come easily to me. I for a long time I was in health and fitness, and that was my purpose. I I love the health and fitness aspect of life, and I got that right early in life. So I'm grateful for that. And then I helped others. But I didn't ever open a gym or a studio, or I'm not that entrepreneurial. So I was finding that getting paid by the hour is not the way to go to achieve financial freedom. And then I started learning about it, and actually started with Bob Proctor, who is big on get multiple streams of income. Very much on the fiat standard, I get that. But but it was the start of my journey. You get multiple streams of income and start getting your mindset right. So I started with that, and I realized that I had burned out a little bit from that work that I was doing, getting paid by the hour, because you can only raise your prices so much, especially with, not everybody's income is rising. So yeah, I just got a bit burnt out of that, went into real estate. And real estate, I felt I love many of my clients, and I like selling. I don't love buying. I find it's a profession that people expect you to be at their beck and call, because the impression is that you get quite a high commission. But what people don't realize is how much work you do behind the scenes, and that you can work 50 to 100 hours and get paid nothing. So both sides are true. And I just got tired of that attitude and the fact that the real estate profession operates that way. I think there's a better way to be done. So I didn't want to keep going that way, although I am still a realtor, and I will work with my clients. I love people. I have clients who respect me and all of that, but I don't want to continue in that. I wanted to start talking about Bitcoin, because once I learned about Bitcoin, I started getting some hope for the world. It wasn't just for myself. I had hope for myself first. Now I'm going to have more time to do what I want to do, and I am going to then, but I also want to help others. And that's why I started the podcast, because actually the people I wanted to help didn't want to listen. And my family, not so interested. Some of the people that I know in Zimbabwe that I know need it so much, but they just also didn't want to listen. And yeah, so I said, well, I'll start a podcast, and the people who want to listen will come and find me.
Yep, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Do you see yourself like selling out of all your real estate at some point and getting all into Bitcoin, or is that something that you think you might do for a while?
So no, I have a plan to. I did sell my investment property to buy Bitcoin, so I've already done that. I was expecting Bitcoin to be further along, talk about focusing on price, and that I would have different plans. But then I realized that as I grow in Bitcoin and continue to learn, that I still need to offer value to the world and find some purpose. So I will just continue, not worry and focus on price, continue with what I'm doing, only work where I want to work, thanks to having Bitcoin stored, and then yeah, see how it goes. Focus on the journey a little bit more than the end point, because before I was just not happy in the job, so I just wanted out. I'm like, I want time, money, freedom now. But now that I'm enjoying doing the podcast, enjoying talking to Bitcoiners, it can get tough though. You're gonna realize when you go full time, the editing. Yes, it's great when you get an editor and somebody to create all the thumbnails and all that, but when you're not making money, it's hard to justify doing that too often.
Right, right, right. No, I agree. I agree. Is the podcast something that you see yourself like doing for a very long time, or do you have like you still have like something that you're passionate about that you like? I might try to provide value in that category instead. Like, what do you see your future like?
Well, I I tend to be very, what do you call it, laser-eyed focused.
Okay.
And
Yep.
so once I get my idea, I got into holistic health. And for 20 years, I studied everything I could about holistic health. And I found the person who I thought was the best. and I just learned everything. Same thing. I got bored of that. I know how to do holistic health. I Same thing with Bitcoin. I just loved it. I love that it goes deeper than just an investment. That yeah, it's there's even it makes me want to be a better person. That's why I say that there's a spiritual side, because yeah, what is spirituality? Spirituality is just going deeper and finding meaning and purpose and something greater than us, connected to something greater than us. Well, that's not Bitcoin. But Bitcoin, because I save in Bitcoin, I have more time to focus on those things that matter to me. And the only other things that really matter to me are family, relationships, health. I like travel. And other than that, I used to be a professional tennis player. I don't play tennis anymore because I was very focused on that too, of course. But yeah, so I don't have really anything else where I feel I want to give back now. So I don't know how long I'll do the podcast. I there's a chance I could lose interest, but I think Bitcoin's going to be part of the future going forward because of how much of life it touches.
And I think I was talking to another one of my guests about that. I think he said, I wish, is it maybe, I don't remember if it was Rajat or somebody else said that eventually at some point when Bitcoin adoption is high enough where the podcast will, they will be irrelevant because enough people, it'll be something in everybody's day-to-day life, and it won't be like the hot subject anymore. But for now, with like, I think we're still, I mean, don't know the exact numbers, still under 5%, I'm guessing. Right now it's still useful to do, I guess. So yeah, okay, I'm right there with you. I don't know how long I'll do this for, but for now, that's what I'm passionate about. So I like that. I like that. Um, and from doing your podcast, what do you think are like? I'll say, like, what are three things that you've learned from your guests so far? Three main things, I'd say.
Yeah, that's a really hard question
Yeah.
because I have short-term memory. But yeah, but one thing I know for sure is I learn from every single person. I learn something. And that's why I keep doing it, because I I can honestly say I learned something from everybody. I would say the most meaningful things that I have learned it's always going to start with Jeff Booth. He, just understanding that Bitcoin has to become a medium of exchange in order to stay a store of value. I can keep giving out that message to people, make people think about it, go do your own research and find out more. The other thing that I really think is big is, yeah, what Jeff says about that the natural state of the free market is deflation. That is, we have been told the opposite our whole lives. And that's just something to keep in the back of my mind. The other thing that I've heard from people living on the Bitcoin standard is that when you switch over to the Bitcoin standard, and I spoke to two people, including, and then Jeff three, but those two people who are all in on Bitcoin, no fiat, they don't focus on price, they focus on the Bitcoin standard. That something flips inside you where you really, I don't think you can understand it until you do it. But when you're all in, then you really focus on what's important in life, like family and relationships and low time preference, especially because you are going to think about how much something costs when you're paying in Bitcoin.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that is true. Actually, I mean, even now, I mean, even without like switching over to being on a full Bitcoin standard, I'm like, I do notice that I do question everything that I'm buying. Like I don't really waste money on like useless thing anymore. I mean, I'll buy something if it's for like if I feel like I'm gonna get a return for it. I don't mind spending money on on good quality food, but I'm starting to notice that actually. Yeah, interesting. Okay, okay, okay.
Are
Um,
you on the Bitcoin standard?
no, I wish
Yeah.
someday. Yeah, it's like I said, it feels hard. Like I'm trying to like use apps like the Fold app, like trying to like get points back in Bitcoin. No, I'm slowly transitioning to that, but like it still feels, yeah, it's still a little hard. I don't know. Yeah, maybe because, and especially, no, it feels like almost nobody around me is doing it, so it's kind
Yeah.
of tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little
We're
hard.
we're early. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
early.
exactly, exactly. And and also like we big corners tend to be lonely because we don't have anybody around us, to talk about these problems too. And do you find that like doing the podcast are actually like kind of therapeutic in a way, like just
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Because all I want to talk about is Bitcoin.
Yeah,
But
I agree, yeah, nah. Yeah, it's nice to actually be like, oh, this person understand the problem, thank god I can talk.
I'm happy to say that my best friend finally got it, and she got it from listening to my podcast too. And yes, of course, she's still learning, but I can talk to her about Bitcoin now, and that's wonderful. But that's the only person. The rest of my family are, I know I do have some extended family that understand a little bit more, but my family, even though they live in Zimbabwe, they have seen the currency collapse many times. They still think that the US dollar is king and is going to be fine. And it might be for a while. And it probably is going to be the king of the currencies, but Bitcoin is what we believe is even better.
Right, right, right. No, I agree. I mean, and like every fiat currency that has every fiat currency in the past have failed, and it's like, the US dollar is just another fiat currency, and we've seen the past 100 years how bad it has done. So it's just, I feel like it's a matter of time before people realize that, oh, okay, this is just another one. And I feel like, our grandkids are just gonna be like, oh wow, I can't believe these people were using paper money to pay for things. I don't know, but we'll see. Only time will tell.
And yet, most people, if even I think of what you just said, I think, yeah, it's not going to happen in our lifetime. And I think most people keep thinking that. We just happen to be towards that end of that 80, 100 years, right, where currencies do fail. And maybe we press it forward another 20 years because the US is pretty powerful and smart people there. But eventually, it's most likely going to fail.
Yep, I agree. I agree. I agree. Oh, where do you see Bitcoin in the next 5 to 10 years if you had to speculate?
I am no good at speculating, I'll tell you that.
Yep.
Um, I just go with what everybody says. Kathy Wood says it's going to be $1 million by 2030. It's going to be somewhere between 500 and a million, probably. Even that sounds, yeah, I don't know for sure. Um, I do. One thing I know is there's going to be more adoption because it's a better way. And when people see the truth, they're gonna understand us better. As long as we don't have any hacks, as Jeff Booth says, as long as it stays decentralized and secure, that's really important for people to trust it because everybody is so afraid of scams and being scammed. So that's important. But so far, it has.
Yep. Yep. That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. And no, and I feel like the FTX and the, I don't know, the Celsius, all those companies kind of like, they're, they kind of brought Bitcoin down a bit. But I feel like now that we have, stronger adoptions, the bigger decision, the BlackRock, the macro strategies, I feel like those have a better foundation. So maybe that will, I don't know, but who knows? I can't see the future. So like you said, who knows? Maybe a million, maybe half a million. We shall see. You've talked a lot about the ego versus IQ test, actually, on Twitter and stuff. Which one do you think it is?
Yeah, so at first it's in the middle between an ego and an IQ. But from most of the people I've talked to, I think they've convinced me it's more of an ego, because I suppose any of us can read the books, but you do have to read the book. You do have to study however you study or watch the videos and learn about what Bitcoin is and what money is and the federal banking system. But so that most people can understand. But then it's almost then I have to admit that I was wrong about all of that stuff, which for me wasn't hard because I didn't know it anyway. I'm like, I wasn't a Keynesian economic. I had no idea. So for me, it's like, sure, this makes much more sense. But uh, for somebody like an Elon Musk who maybe does understand, but is profiting very much from the system, maybe that's an ego journey of saying, no, 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 this is working fine for me. I don't really need Bitcoin, which he doesn't right now. But I think everybody eventually will need Bitcoin.
Yeah, I feel like I'm leaning more towards the ego because it is a little bit of both, but I feel like you're right. I mean, even if you're not the smartest person, I mean, if you understand that there is a problem, I mean, yeah, no, okay, no, that's fair, that's fair. And then other than the number grow up technology, how else has Bitcoin changed you?
I think Bitcoin has given me the low time preference,
Mhm.
even though I had saved and I'm not a big spender like some people in my family.
Shot fired.
They don't listen anyway, so
Yeah,
it
no, yeah.
doesn't matter. um, yeah. So, but it makes me think about what am I spending my money on, and could I rather put that in Bitcoin, because I do believe it's going to continue to go up, and the reason it's going to go up is because we're going to keep printing more money, not because that there's going to be more Bitcoin, but and that the adoption will rise too. So Bitcoin has changed that part of me. I think it definitely gave me hope that now I have a solution where I don't have to work forever and I can save in something that is going to appreciate in value. And as long as I can keep it safe and secure, which I can see that can be an issue for especially the older generation. And yeah, and I do have concerns about that when I recommend people putting it in self custody, because not only do you have to keep your device safe or your multi sig, well, you can do multi sig and that works, but that's a little bit more complicated. But yeah, so yeah, I go off on a tangent. Sorry,
No,
but
it's all good.
but yeah, so I do think that it gave me hope. It gave me a lot of hope, not just for myself, but because like I was saying, yes, I can make a lot of money in real estate, but if I am not fulfilled doing it, then what's the point? I also need to feel fulfilled. So where with Bitcoin, I can secure my future, but other people can too, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah, that's well said. I like that. It does, yeah, it does give you hope because it almost feels like before Bitcoin, like you're right, like you feel like you don't realize it before, but it almost felt like you would actually be working forever, almost like because your purchasing power is just gonna continue to decrease no matter. I mean, maybe if you have like a million billion dollars or whatever, but it doesn't matter because your purchasing power is still gonna continue to go down. So yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you play the system, which I realized, but too late. And how you play the system? Well, you buy assets, you buy real estate, you buy stocks. And I wasn't told that in my 20s. I wish I had been told that. I would have sold it all now for Bitcoin.
Yep.
but but it still would have been a good place to start. I Yeah, I just So I think there are certain people who are told that and do very well. Or if you're an entrepreneur and you have a business, yes, you can do very well in the system. But if you happen to be just working for corporate America or just on a salary based, it's getting tougher and tougher to survive. So
Did you ever play the game Monopoly?
yeah.
Man, yeah, because I never played it. I mean, I'm originally from Haiti, so I never had that game. But I mean, I heard that if you play, people that played that game tend to do better, like financially, because they understand, and especially those that teach your kids. But I don't know. I have no idea. So I don't know. I was just curious.
Yeah, it's funny. I did play that game, and my dad actually did buy assets. But for some reason, when I came to the US on my own, I had a bit more fear about buying assets and going on my own. I did play Monopoly, and I did read Robert Kiyosaki's book,
Yep,
Think
rich
and
dad,
Grow,
poor
yeah,
dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yep, yep.
and it all made sense to me. I sent the book to my brother. My brother went and bought real estate and assets and did what the book said, and I was not as risk taker. I was not such a big risk taker. I bought a little bit, but not. So I think it depends on your personality. And for me, Bitcoin just works perfectly, and that's why, instead of investing in everything in the altcoins, Bitcoin appeals to me because all I have to do is save. You don't have to become a real estate investor or a stockbroker or any of that. Yes, I wish I was more like that, but it's clear I wasn't. I bought a little bit, but yeah, I think that's a good point.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Like it's so simple. It's like, hey, all you have to do is save. Like you don't have to go do other stuff anymore. You don't have to learn about balance sheet or PE ratios or all of these other things. Just put your money somewhere and you can enjoy the fruits of your labor later on. So no, that's well said. That's well said.
Mhm.
Um, and I got one last question for you that I ask everybody. If you had to go back in time and give your younger self advice, other than buying more Bitcoin, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself to be my own best friend. That I think it's really important to have be kind to yourself and to follow your heart. Do what you love. I Rather than just trying to do something for money, do what you love and give it your best. I would also say buy assets and real estate that I'll
Yep.
sell later for Bitcoin.
That's fair. That's fair. Oh, that's a good. That's a very deep answer. Be your best friend. Actually, be your best friend. I like that. I like that. Thank you very much for your time, Paula. I appreciate you being here. Where can people find you?
So they can find me at the Bitcoin Edge on YouTube or
Mhm.
on X. And
Nice.
yeah,
All right.
that's it. Thank
Perfect.
you
I'll
so
put
much for
yeah.
having
Of
me.
of course, I'll put those link in the description, and I will. And thank you again for being here. I appreciate that.